us with a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the buzzer. The Meccans, however, were more than ever furious at the Prophet's increasing preaching against their religion. They asked his uncle Abu Talib to stop him, but he could not do anything. As the Prophet persisted in his ardent denunciations against their ungodliness and impiety, they turned him out from the Kaaba, where he used to sit and preach, and subsequently went in a hodi to Abu Talib. They urged the venerable chief to prevent his nephew from abusing their gods any longer or uttering any ill words against their ancestors. They warned Abu Talib that if he would not do that, he would be excluded from the communion of his people and driven to side with Muhammad. The matter would then be settled by fight until one of the two parties were exterminated. Abu Talib neither wished to separate himself from his people nor forsake his nephew for the idolaters to revenge themselves upon. He spoke to the Prophet very softly and begged him to abandon his affair. To this suggestion the Prophet firmly replied, "O my uncle, if they place the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand to cause me to renounce my task, verily I would not desist therefrom until Allah made manifest his cause, or I perished in the attempt." The Prophet, overcome by the thought that his uncle and protector was willing to desert him, turned to depart. But Abu Talib called him loudly to come back, and he came. "Say whatever you please, for by the Lord I shall not desert you ever." The Quraysh again attempted in vain to cause Abu Talib to abandon his nephew. The venerable chief declared his intention to protect his nephew against any menace or violence. He appealed to the sense of honor of the two families of the Bani Hashim and the Bani Muttalib, both families being kinsmen of the Prophet, to protect their member from falling a victim to the hatred of rival parties. All the members of the two families nobly responded to the appeal of Abu Talib, except Abu Lahab, one of the Prophet's uncles, who took part with the persecutors. During this period, Umar al-Khattab adopted Islam. In him, the new faith gained a valuable adherent and an important factor in the future development and propagation of Islam. Hitherto, he had been a violent opposer of the Prophet and a bitter enemy of Islam. His conversion is said to have been worked by the miraculous effect on his mind of a surah of the Quran which his sister was reading in her house, where he had gone with the intention of killing her for adopting Islam. Thus, the party of the Prophet had been strengthened by the conversation by his uncle Hamza, a man of great valor and merit, and of Abu Bakr and Umar, both men of great energy and reputation. The Muslims now ventured to perform their devotions in public. Alarmed at the bold part which the Prophet and his followers were not able to assume, and roused by the return of the deputies from Abyssinia and the announcement of their unsuccessful mission, the Quraysh determined to check by a decisive blow any further progress of Islam. Towards this end, in the 7th year of the mission, they made a solemn covenant against the descendants of Hashim and Muttalib, engaging themselves to contract no marriage with any of them, and to have no communication with them. Upon this, the Quraysh became divided into two factions, and the two families of Hashim and Muttalib all repaired to Abu Talib as their chief. Abu Lahab, the Prophet's uncle, however, out of his inveterate hatred of his nephew and his doctrine, went over to the opposite party, whose chief was Abu Sufyan ibn Harb of the family of Umayyah. The persecuted party, Muslims as well as idolaters, betook themselves to a defile on the eastern skirts of Mecca. They lived in this defensive position for 3 years. The provisions which they had carried with them were soon exhausted. Probably they would have entirely perished, but for the sympathy and occasional help received from less bigoted compatriots. Towards the beginning of the 10th year of the mission, reconciliation was concluded between the Quraysh and the two families of Hashim and Abdul Muttalib through the intermediation of Hisham ibn Umar and Zubair ibn Abu Umayyah. Thus, the alliance against the two families was abolished, and they were able to return to Mecca. During the period the Prophet and his kinspeople passed in their defensive position, Islam made no progress outside, but in the sacred months, when violence was considered sacrilege, the Prophet used to come out of his temporary prison to preach Islam to the pilgrims.